The convex layering technique allows you to create movement and body throughout a haircut. This technique is one of 4 techniques that remove length on the surface of the hair. It leaves less weight and length on the top of the head than perpendicular layering, and more weight and length than parallel and concave layering. We will focus on hand and scissor position as well as the proper elevation from the head shape to create a convex layer. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to separate the hair from the tip of the nose to the nape of the neck. So we're going to separate that hair in half, and then the top of the crown to behind the ear, so we have 4 equal quadrants. And we're going to deal with some different ways in which to create this convex layer, so that way we can really work with this layer system to understand how it translates to real people. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to explore body and hand position. So you'll notice I'm going to stand on the side of the head. So I'm working on the right side right now. And as I work on the right side of the head, I'm going to make sure to be standing on the left side of the head. And as I'm working, I'm going to start with that elevation going up. The first system we learned is perpendicular layers. So that means that elevation was lower. And now what we're going to do is we're going to elevate that hair up and start to transition from that lower elevation of layering all the way up to that top elevation of layering. And this is that in between where we're working from that bottom to the top. I'm going to elevate that hair up, and you'll notice I'm just pinching that hair together through my fingers. I'm going to over direct it back. So as I over direct it back, I'm going to make sure to maintain a bit more of a triangular shape in this convex layer. So as I work my way through over directing that hair up, the body position is nice and comfortable. My fingers are holding the hair evenly. I'm usually not cutting past my second knuckle because that second knuckle doesn't get a lot of tension. And I'm just going to work my way from the tips of my fingers into that second knuckle. And what you'll notice is I'm using my fingers as a stabilizer. So I'm allowing my fingers to hold the shears in the place that it needs to be. So that way I'm not cutting above my fingers with fear that I might end up cutting myself, and actually allowing my fingers to hold the hair in place, and that using my fingers as a track for my shears. As I transition to the sides, I want to explore some other variations of cutting this length. So as I'm working, I want to look at actually rounding my fingers and point cutting the hair instead of just cutting it more bluntly, because I want to look at what it means to actually cut a little more softly, a little more modern in the way in which we cut. And we're going to look at another option as well, besides for just point cutting. I want to look at what it means to cut from the inside out. So here I'm opening and closing my shears and just removing length at the ends, still stabilizing that hair as I'm working, and you'll notice that my body position is nice and comfortable. And I'm just working from the inside out using my shears to cut that perimeter length out. As I work to the other side, what you're going to notice is my body position can still be quite upright. I don't need to move the head around too much because the elevation of the hair is very clear. When I'm working lower, it's often I have to move the head around to get that head to be in a position that's more comfortable for my body. But usually for convex layers, I can actually just keep the head in the same position that it is, keep my body in a nice comfortable position. But you'll notice I've switched sides, so now I'm cutting on the right side while I'm actually doing the haircut on the left side of her head. And as I'm working, I'm actually going to allow my pinky to lead the way, so it lets me work from the inside of the hair to the outside of the hair. And here I'm going to cut in that same convex layer, and instead of working with the hair being over directed back, I'm actually going to move my body. So I'm going to create a bit of a roundness to that convex layer. So now to cross-check the hair, I'm going to take a horizontal section and I'm going to elevate the hair at the same elevation I was cutting the initial part of the haircut. And then I'm going to check to make sure that I have a roundness there. The hair should be round because I moved my body. If I kept my body in the same place, I would still have that corner like I did on the other side. But because I moved, it creates a roundness, so I know that my body controls the shape. As I elevate it and look at it, I see that roundness and I know that I did a good job. So now I can move on to the next part of the haircut. So I'm going to explore different ways to actually cut this length. So instead of cutting it bluntly only and rounding my fingers, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to look at other ways. So here I'm going to take the hair and I'm going to point cut the hair. So I'm going to go in there and I'm just going to remove some of that length, thinking again about what it is that I'm trying to create. Instead of cutting a blunt line and then cutting it soft later, I want to explore what it means to actually cut softly from start to finish. So even though I'm creating a very strong shape here using a convex layer, I still know that I can create some softness there. So as I'm working, instead of just point cutting, I'm going to look at another technique, which is just carving from the inside out, softening up and diffusing those ends. So here you'll notice I'm just using the shears to cut that initial length off, just softening that up so that the hair is nice and manageable. And when it falls, it's a little lighter and a little less aggressive and a little less heavy. So there's a little bit more movement to the ends. So as I explore different techniques of cutting, different body positions, different ways in which I hold my hands or even hold my shears, I think about what the end result is. So as we explore different ways of creating layers, this is the second of the 4 techniques, working from perpendicular all the way up to concave. The convex layer is second in order, and as we continue to move, we're going to look at ways to remove more weight and more length to create more movement and still maintain more softness at the perimeter.